Good evening, everyone. My name is Keith Beasley. I'm accompanied by Ben Timbrink as well as Jordan Stone, and we're here to give you our race to the finish line as we think about optimizing NASCAR's sales strategy. All right. So at a high level, when we think about the current state of NASCAR, we looked at the key insights and trends that come from all the races, products, as well as the customers that they currently have. And we found that like over 60% of all ticket revenue is generated by 4 locations as depicted on the screen. So when we think about Chicago, Phoenix, Talladega, and Daytona, those are the highest revenue generating locations NASCAR currently has. The key thing I want to point out here is that when you look at Chicago and Phoenix, these are single race locations comparative to Daytona and Talladega, but the revenue generating numbers are very close in comparison to Talladega, which lets you know if you want to think about ways to expand the actual race, expand the season when it comes to adding more races, you can leverage these locations because you know you have a lot of success there when it comes to revenue generation. And as we continue to look through that, we understand that like 70% of all purchases are actually for general admissions, which means that most of the NASCAR fans prefer the general experience. However, the 30% of the premium experience is actually important to note as well because that provides you opportunities to continue to understand how to enhance their fan experience because they're more loyal than the general 70%. Well, I'll expand on the next slide about the actual correlation between the distance and the time of advanced purchases. But the one correlation that is actually very important to note is that advanced ticket pricing and advanced ticket purchases are very dependent on the type of race, whether it's an actual in-season race versus a playoff race. And that actually is going to be included in our sales strategy as well. And from a product standpoint, it goes without saying, 95% of ticket revenue is done through the sales channels of phone and internet. So we know those are highly successful when it comes to promotion strategies. So actually taking the time to prioritize those in your promotion and sales strategy will be highly, highly influential to the decision and promotions that we have for you today. And lastly, when we think about the revenue that's generated, the standard buyer group is actually the most popular of all. So being able to complement the standard buyer group with general admission sales is going to help continue to increase the amount of revenue generated for all NASCAR tickets. So when we think about the customers themselves, it's important to note that over 42% of all revenue was purchased between individuals between the ages of 46 and 65. That lets you know that NASCAR has an aging population when it comes to their actual fan base, but they're extremely loyal as we depicted earlier, so we want to be able to continue to maximize them while also including others into that segment as well. As we talked about the distance traveled, there's an average distance of 283 miles per race, which lets you know that a lot of NASCAR fans are not localized to the actual location of the race itself, and that because they're willing to travel so far, you can capitalize on that loyalty of the fan base and use that in your promotion strategies to increase the retention of those customers and the actual obtaining new customers as well. Now, if we think about the average household income, it's important to note that 49% of purchases were between incomes of $35,000 and just shy of $150,000. And when you look at the graphic on the right, we really want to focus on the income brackets with the blue cars associated with them. These are important because all of these income brackets have a minimum threshold of 40,000 tickets, which is a very significant metric to understand how profitable you can be with each income bracket. Understanding that the average household income based on these groups is between $100,000 and $124,000, we understand that we want to first look at this group as a means of saying, okay, what are the key needs and desires of this group? How do we optimize and maximize their fan experience? And then also provide experiences that actually attract the other blue groups as well. And the last note I'll put here is that when we look at the actual purchase lead time, it averages to be about 150 days, which is about 5 months, which lets you know any promotional strategy that you implement has to be at a minimum 5 months out, but we would suggest at least 6, if not more, depending on the race type, whether it's an actual in-season race versus a playoff race. Next, I'll pass it off to Ben to really understand like how these key trends affected our sales taking strategy.
Yeah, so when we were building our future ticket sales model, we took a heavy FP&A approach here to really align with the FP&A team at NASCAR on tangible goals that they can do from a revenue and ticket sales outcome. The way we did this was to examine a couple variables. From a historical revenue forecasting perspective, the FP&A team's doing a great job. They were able to forecast the 2022 races within 99% accuracy of the forecasted revenue for the race, as well as the actual revenue provided by the race. 2023, it dipped a bit, got down to 84%, and that was mainly due to a forecast miss at Chicago. You can write that away to a certain extent just because of the rain, like everyone mentioned beforehand, as well as it was a first-time event. Hard to correctly predict, what that level of consistency is going to be, but we are able to use that data to predict 2024 relatively well, and we're excited about the future of the Chicago race, as you'll see later. From a ticket forecasting perspective, we ran into some issues with the data where a lot of the times the revenue is accurate, but the ticket forecasting from the team was not. Within 65%-ish or so, they were missing estimates of the actual tickets that were, or people attending the race. So if they predicted 50,000 people coming to the race, there was only 35,000 in the data that showed from actual ticket sales. So we use those two metrics mainly to build our FP&A model on the next slide, but as far as the promotional strategies and marketing, we did do some more customer analysis on that right-hand side, if you can go back real quick. And that's where we talked about earlier with the bottom right, the customer purchasing behavior. For playoff races, people buy tickets further out than they do for regular races, and that's likely due to capturing your stronger fans that went to a race and want to go back to these playoff races. So now when we build out the actual ticket sales model goal, we have a revenue target of $130 million for 2025. This is because, if you look at the bottom, $133 million for 2025. If you look at the bottom left-hand side, we summarized the 2022 and 2023 revenue, and then we provided a baseline target for what we expect for 2024 this year, as it's the ongoing season. And that's why we felt for when building out this predictive sales model, we focused on a 2025 estimate. That way you can use our ticketing and marketing strategies to actually hit this goal. At a high level, you can see the breakdown of how we got to this number. We estimated about a 13% revenue growth over 2024, and for setting the 2024 baseline, we just used your 2023 forecasted revenue. Even though it missed in 2022, we know we liked the way you guys were able to accurately predict that revenue forecast number, and we felt confident in being able to use it as a baseline for 2024. As far as backing our way into an actual ticket sales goal, we were able to do that by breaking out historical revenue by when customers purchased ahead of the event date. So as you can see in table 2, 41% of purchases for regular season races were within 2 months, as well as 33% for postseason races. So being able to break this out by race type allows the FP&A and marketing teams to really focus on specific customers by race in this scenario. As well as, whenever you're making a revenue forecast, you can always raise prices to make sure you can just boost your revenue numbers. We didn't want to do that. We took an average regular season ticket price number from 2023 actuals and applied that to our 2024 and 2025 models. And then you can break that out by dividing revenue divided by price, and you get the actual ticket sales goals here on step 4 and step 5. So to achieve our ticket sales plan in step 5, we believe that we're not going to create any price increases, and that the marketing and sales strategies, as well as the demand from the full-speed Netflix series, is going to be able to hit this 2025 ticket sales target of 731,000 tickets. From a timeline release perspective, this isn't very much different to what NASCAR does today from releasing promotional strategies. As soon as the race kicks off in the end of the season here in 2024, immediately start your playoff renewals, as that we saw on the previous page with 41% of purchases coming 10 to 12 plus months out. We can really capture that initial stage and the fandom and the creativity of those races where we can really recapture those fans. And then we move into more of the regular season ticket press, where you're selling your single day race events for each by the regular season. And then we move in lastly to our playoff race ticket press. We can dig into these numbers further on, but I want to hand it off to Jordan for our marketing and sales strategy.
So based off of the data that we were provided, we have identified 3 key areas that NASCAR should look into to increase ticket sales. That's going to be increasing ticket revenue distribution, attracting the next generation of fans, and creating a heightened overall race day experience. So in the 2023 season, Talladega, Daytona, Chicago, and Phoenix accounted for over 60% of total ticket revenue. Given the high concentration in only 4 locations, we believe that it is imperative for NASCAR to increase this distribution across other race sites. Additionally, NASCAR's current core fan base is middle-aged, so in order to ensure long-term stability and growth, NASCAR should look into targeting a more diverse and younger fan base. We think that these 2 key areas can really be expanded upon by building that heightened overall race day experience, by offering more premium ticket packages, and hosting live entertainment events throughout the races. So we did a deep dive into the Chicago street race because we really see it as just the perfect example of our recommendations due to the race's success, despite the poor weather conditions that everyone has mentioned today. So in the 2023 season, this was the first time that the race was introduced, but it ranks second in single race ticket revenue, which is pretty incredible for it being a newly introduced race. And we attribute this success to that overall different approach to that race day experience. So with the premium ticket offerings, that offered people that were looking for that heightened experience to get a more exclusive, high-end feel to the NASCAR races. Also, even though the music festival was ultimately canceled due to the weather, that brought in a new fan base that was younger, more diverse, people who typically like to have these music events, as we've seen in other leagues across the country or the world. And these people weren't necessarily NASCAR fans before, so that's just a great opportunity to build that diversification. So based off of everything that we've talked about today, in order to hit our ticket revenue recommendation or the projections that we've come up with, we have identified some marketing strategies that we think would be really successful. But we do first want to note that all of these strategies are centered around creating this more diverse, younger fan base, so they need to be delicately approached so as not to alienate NASCAR's existing fan base. So to start, we'll take a look at how we can build revenue in some of these lower generating races by targeting fans in a new approach. So some examples of this could be investing in the website to make it a more seamless experience for browsing and ticket purchasing, creating a unified fan database in order to leverage data to get a better understanding of what fans like, optimize fan engagement, especially amongst fans that are attending multiple races a year, that loyal fan base of NASCAR. And finally, we think that potentially looking at some different sponsorship opportunities and partnering with brands that are more aligned with the action sports space, such as Body Armor Sports Drink, could be a potential great opportunity where we know that these action sport brands resonate really well with the younger audience. We'll now switch gears into our second recommendation, which is utilizing digital engagement in a more enhanced way to really take advantage of NASCAR's social media engagement across all platforms. So some recommendations we have here are day-in-the-life videos with drivers, behind-the-scenes videos at races, where not only is this the kind of content that the younger generation really loves to see and they're active across all these social media platforms, it also just helps build more authentic relationships between the drivers and the fans. Through these efforts, we think that it should be really focused on that college audience and also young adult audience that is social media obsessed. That's where we'll be able to reap the most benefits. And then switching gears a little bit, we also recommend that increased promotion of esports and gaming would be a great space to really take advantage of momentum that we're seeing there, but also create an opportunity for authentic fan engagement with the sport. And finally, our last marketing strategy, we've honed in on it a lot today, but making that superior race day experience through these events. So hosting live entertainment and music events throughout the races will really resonate well with this new target audience that we believe that NASCAR should be looking into. And also we think that the schedule of these events should be through the entire race experience throughout the weekend. So it's giving fans a full experience, a full schedule, but also helping drive attendance to not just the Cup Series, maybe the Xfinity Series or the Truck Series. And finally, I will just hint at this a little bit before I turn it back over to Keith, but we did come up with a recommended strategy for a cross-selling opportunity with UFC through On Location to create a hospitality package that would be able to potentially draw in a new generation of fans as well.
Thank you. All right. So as you can see, we're thinking about different ways to not only just enhance the current fan experience, but also acquire new fan customers for NASCAR. And one of the ways we can do that is through strategic partnerships. And so when you start to look at this, we understand that NASCAR fans are extremely loyal, and they're willing to travel long distances. So we don't have to worry too much about that in our approach. Additionally, we understand that NASCAR has an aging fan base, and we want to engage more vibrant and younger customers through our strategic partnerships. So that's one of the reasons why we selected NASCAR or UFC for one of the strategic partnerships. As you can see, one of the key things we want to understand is how can we maximize the strengths of NASCAR and find partners that allow us to kind of leverage those strengths and increase our efficiency as well. When we look at the USC partnership, we want to pilot it in Miami because not only is there a race there with Homestead, there's also a UFC fight there as well. So one of the things that we want to do is understand, okay, we can bring in a lot of the different customers that are coming in from UFC, give them a premium package as seen in the mock-up on the screen, and give them a bundle that allows them to have the same fan experience that they have with UFC, get the backstage passes, get them access to everything they want within their natural sport, and then also offer them an additional package to have the ability and access to engage with NASCAR as well. What we'll see with that is we'll have a lot more retention of new fans, and we'll also be able to give NASCAR the ability and visibility that it didn't traditionally have. So when we think about the value proposition of this, we looked at having a ticket package of $1,500. That came from understanding that most of the premium packages for UFC run about $4,500, and the premium packages for NASCAR being $700, so we just combined the prices there. And so when we think about that, there's an opportunity to sell about 100 bundles through this package, which offers a $70,000 premium opportunity for those packages themselves. Now, while this is only a small subset of the actual NASCAR customers themselves, we want to use this as a use case to say, if we have success with our premium experiences, let's apply this to the general experiences as well. And so if we look at the GA experience, we're going to say that at the UFC in Miami, they had 19,000 journal admission tickets for that actual event. If we expect a conversion rate of about 5% with a discounted ticket price of about $60, that's an additional $60,000 in revenue you can generate just from that promotion itself. So when we think about for one race, you have an additional $130,000 you can generate based on your partnership opportunity with UFC for one race. Now, when we start to think about how we can have a larger effect on a season, we can understand that there's about maybe just over 360,000 people in live attendance for UFC, with a 5% conversion rate for that number there, and an average ticket price of $85. You have an additional $2.5 million in revenue you can generate in 1 year just off of one partnership. So if we think about additional partnerships and additional leagues that we can leverage to increase our ability to maximize NASCAR's ability to enhance the fan experience and actually obtain new customers, strategic partnerships with Formula One, Live, or other leagues are a great opportunity to actually initiate that desire. So without further ado, we'll leave it open for questions, and thank you for listening.
Great job, guys. A lot to go over here because you guys this is really good looking in the partnerships. Your age ranges are good. Average miles traveled is good. When you look at, so I think my first question that I had was, when you came up with body armor, how did you come up with body armor? For when you were talking about the partnerships with the engaging, how we would engage, and you know, I have it written under invest in website, so I think you went through how you were getting influencers to drink body armor or to have a partnership there to show people who came to our website, you know, a brand there. Like, how did you come up with body armor?
Yeah, so I looked at the existing sponsorships. I saw Monster on there because that was immediately my first go-to brand to recommend. But then looking into body armor, I know that there is a partnership with one of the teams as well. And I just think leveraging that space, it's a drink that has had exponential growth in recent years. people, younger generations are turning to it. You go to the convenience store, you go to the grocery store, you're buying that. So it's just playing into that more youthful audience that is looking for maybe some alternatives to traditional beverages.
Thank you again. Based on your Chicago use case, I mean, did you think about where NASCAR could recreate that in another market, or in terms of like branching out and kind of achieving your goals?
Yeah, I think from the data that we were given, we really wanted to focus on increasing the tickets sold to existing races, because it's really easy just to say we're going to go to a new location. And I know Steve Phillips has talked about on many podcasts, like that's the desired goal of how well the Chicago race is. But for the instances of this case, we felt that, we have a lot of long-standing races over many years that aren't selling out or not even at half capacity. How do we find a way to get more people into the stands there? And that's naturally going to be able to grow any other market there is out there by just having existing NASCAR fans. So while we did think about exploring the new locations, we really mainly focused with this ticket bundling concept at the end of how we can increase, tickets sold to the existing locations.
Yeah, and just to follow that up quickly, one of the reasons why I wanted to highlight the single race revenue numbers for both Chicago and Phoenix is because you could apply the same model that you use in Chicago for the Phoenix location as well. And as a North Carolina native, I was hoping that there was some Charlotte data included, but Charlotte's one of those cities, and North Carolina was one of those cities where you could recreate the same opportunity, because there aren't a lot of sports in Charlotte outside of football and basketball. So a lot of people there want more access to sports. And so you bring that in, you can maximize a lot more outside of just Charlotte Motor Speedway to make sure that you have an event that more people can get awareness of.
We'd love to have the Charlotte data as well.
Yeah.
Good stuff again. You mentioned kind of the sweet spot from an income bracket, 120 to 140K. Did you see any like purchase behavior that kind of drove them to be a point of emphasis for you? Was it more VIP experiences, multi-track? Did you notice any trends in the data among that kind of the sweet spot from a revenue?
Yeah, so just to make sure I clarify your question, for this income bracket group in particular,
Yeah.
you're asking if there's any like purchase behavior based on like.
Yeah, I mean,
Okay.
what was this just a profile? Yeah, for tickets sold. I mean, so obviously, so it's quantity based. Is it more quantity? Is it single event? Are they attending more events, or is this just per event?
They're attending more events over the length of the season.
Okay.
Yep.
And with this same sorry, did I step on you? Sorry. So with this same question, did you find that any of these income brackets attended, you mentioned leading events like the Truck Series, Xfinity Series, did you find that any of these brackets went to any of those,
More frequently?
Yeah.
Yeah, so I think the reason why we chose UFC was because that becomes more of a premium customer experience, and they're shelling out $4,500, I believe, for a premium package. So if we're able to really target that premium group there and convert them into NASCAR fans, I know Kellogg got a great point as well with their data that that 2% of customer base is accounting for 20% revenue, and so that's why we really focused on using premium experiences and engaging that UFC demographic that kind of likes the glitz and the glamour of the fight scene, and being able to capitalize on them. And then, some of the comparable leagues that we threw in there was more of a concept, right? If NASCAR themselves decided we don't want to partner with UFC, there's growing leagues like Live Golf where you're going to get a ton of foot traffic, and by offering that discount ticket code, you might be able to attract them as well. So we really wanted to emphasize it was a concept, but we felt UFC was a great partner to target first.
Perfect, okay. The 150 days here, how did you guys come up with that? No, is that an average?
Yep, just an average.
Okay, average from event day.
Yep.
Okay.
Sorry, what was the red versus blue car in that right graphic?
Yeah, so the red versus blue basically allows you to identify which income groups were more lucrative when it comes to revenue generation or tickets quantity sold, because every blue car past the blue line on the graph is in excess of 40,000 tickets.
Just on the UFC partnership, and apologies if I missed this, what type of information did you look at, or would you want to look at to say that would be a good sort of overlap or potential overlap of customers? And how would you pitch that to like a UFC of like, this is a worthy partnership to get involved in?
Yes, that was a main proponent of us was, how do we sell UFC here as well? And I think the biggest thing is you have to offer some sort of revenue sharing agreement with them. But when we talk about, a lot of the NASCAR fans wanting to sell these coming for these premium experiences, that can go both ways for UFC as well. If we're having 2% of customers that can spend a lot of money at these races, UFC is going to have the opportunity by bringing in NASCAR fans for their premium experiences, and we can sell that and market that to them with this partnership by sitting at the table and saying that, you can bring these fans in.
Also, with On Location, we just identified that right off the bat as soon as we saw that the hospitality offerings that exist already with NASCAR and UFC, we saw it just as a natural partnership. And then also with Dana White, his involvement in NASCAR increasing, we just kind of were driving off of that momentum too.